Okay, I'm here. We're going to talk about body language, which as soon as I mention that, you say everybody's going to think about body language. Now we just, okay, body language. Okay. And I'm here with Elron, who, but for anonymity, we're going to call him Gandalf. Or maybe we'll just stick with Elron. And we're talking about various things, but Elron is an experienced street performer and performer in general, so he has some ideas on body language. And I wanted to talk about body language because I think this is, I've always had mixed feelings about it, so we'll get into that. But mostly we'll start by trying to borrow your expertise. So we can just dive in, because since I haven't really, there's no warm-up, we just...
It's such a large topic, we should narrow it down into a group of topics and start from there. But I think we could start by saying that it's at least 40% of communication.
Oh yeah, or maybe
in a light conversation.
Well, if we're starting that general too, because I was thinking I'd break it down into these categories and stuff too. But in general, I think it's I think mammals. We share body language in general with mammals. Most of the things for human body language, there's some analog in the mammals, pointing and lots of things that are bodily conveyed is how we can communicate with animals. So probably more than 40%. I'm into it's 80%. Even though I'm trying to discount it, as you know. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. But I thought one way to start is, okay, first I was just going to say that
the body language... depends what you're going to say, I guess.
Yeah, I have a specific question I can start
What is more important? Because the language is definitely... Language is the tools. The words are the tools that you use to say something. But what you say can be what you're intending to relay. Might not have anything to do with those words.
Like sarcasm.
It could. They could. Your body language and the words could both totally overlap, or they could be...
They could be opposite with sarcasm, which you can convey with tone of voice or with body language. So, okay, real quick, I was going to say we'll make the distinction of just... because you could say that, as I was using an example, shaking your head and nodding your head are part of a formal language because they're such well-known symbols. But we'll just do it that there's a written language, which we might call an analytic language, kind of assume that that's the intellectual side. And then we have, though you can bring other things in. You could, for example, you could describe body language maybe and be subtle, but just as the epitome. And then there's things you could record in sound, which is spoken language. And then there's the body language, which is stuff that comes through on a video recording. So, for example, doing philosophy videos on YouTube has a body language component, right? Okay, so given that, what I was going to ask you is now, you do street performing, you juggle, and you do an act where you ride an 8-foot unicycle, and you have to climb up, you have to get volunteers. And we've talked before about, the art of getting a volunteer is really about reading their body language, right? You need to get big guys, you don't want to get punched. Is this, so basically to set it up really quickly, what do? You get 3 people, and you don't need them to climb. You do need them, but you don't really need them. You pretend to need them more.
I could argue that not just getting the volunteer, but a lot of the performing is body language. And the closer you are to your audience, the less it is about just being an actor and being able to make your own body language, but looking at the crowd as a group and seeing what they're going to be entertained with.
So you're saying, but okay, so for example, specifically, is this an eye contact thing, or no, you're watching their bodies move?
Hopefully you're in a small group, like what I do, you're in a small enough group that you can connect eye contact with the whole audience, as many as possible at least, and as they come. On a stage, no, but they still try to, you know what I mean? And you want to, more than being able to control and fake your emotions, a lot of the better performers are being able to read the people that are around them. Like they'll say in business, it's not about what you do, but the emotional contact that you have with your other business people that'll make you successful.
Well, right, to focus on this an example, because I think I could probe in, and there's some other questions I'll ask you too about some of the performance you've done, but okay, you choose 3 people. You generally choose big guys. They wouldn't really have to be that big, is my impression. It is kind of scary. I've done it. But mostly you don't need as much help as you pretend. You goof on them and make them nervous, like they're going to drop you, and really you just need them to hold the unicycle. You have a lot of it on your own. So how do you go choosing somebody? Because I've been in audiences just dreading that someone would choose me. and I don't get chosen. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, and I've gotten chosen, you know, in war if I was chosen to do something. And I'm sure it was my willingness, which I must have conveyed. But maybe I'm not as much danger of being picked as I think if it's a body language thing.
Probably not, because the person, some people that are dreading it probably want to get up there. Who knows what everybody's personal thought is before they get up there. But the ideal volunteer isn't the class clown that, whether he is or not, thinks he's funny and comes up and wants to take the show or have the show. That's okay. You want somebody that maybe is a little bit nervous to get up at first, doesn't think, what am I going to do? How am I going to take the show? And then you let them have it. They get their show. They get a laugh. They get a joke. They feel good. And then they feel.
But do you feel that out subconsciously, or do you consciously say, "Oh, look, that guy showed that he was nervous, but I also saw he was sparkled"?
You definitely consciously do that. You consciously do that while you're doing the rest of the show. You look out through the crowd and you pick that. And I do also need help. That's not totally one-sided.
Yeah, I know.
It's not just for a laugh.
But you pretend to climb up them, and you aren't really doing that.
I pretend to make a lot of jokes, but I can't get on it without them physically.
Well, that's the funny part. How do you choose that too? That people that aren't going to flake on you, because it is possible to flake on that thing. I guess if you get big beefy men, they're all going to hold the thing and use their muscles. Because the thing is, if you were to panic or have a stage fright, it seems like you could drop that thing. But then maybe I'm not knowing how much you're really relying on me.
Well, that's what you would definitely like. That's where the subtleties of body language come in. You don't necessarily realize it so much, but I've never got somebody up there that flakes on me once I'm on the unicycle.
Really?
I've asked people loads of times, will you help me? And they say no.
And you just
and so in a sense you kind of fool them. You're like, I need a volunteer. Look at this brave and courageous person. Give him a round of applause. And I don't really ask you, but I ask you as politely as I can by saying, look at he's brave and courageous. Give him a round of applause. And then come...
I guess this isn't a body language thing, but what do you think's going on? Why can't you just ask them? You know what I mean? It's like you can't ask them. You are asking them because it's important to you to know that they're willing in some sense. But you don't just go, hey, will you come up here? You say,
ask them.
He's coming up, and you
so here's
make it hard for him to say no.
Here's what you do. You do ask them, but you do it in the privacy of your own communication, which can be difficult to get his full contact because you got anywhere from, you
mean like the whispering or whatever you're talking about.
You have an audience watching, and you ask him to help you, and he's not going to say yes. You know, you can't say, will you help me, in front of everybody and have him say yes. That happens once in a while. But it's more you can look at somebody and say, are you going to help me? And he's like, oh shit, that guy wants help. I'm a nice guy, I'll help him. And at that moment, I know it. And I'm not going to make you commit in front of the audience to say, I think I can help him get on the unicycle. I'll do it. It's more like, well, this guy's perfect for it. You know what I mean? Because I've seen that you're gonna do that. I make it easy for you, but I don't. I ask you to help me. I don't ask you to admit that in front of the group.
Okay, now you told me that you have done that trick in Italy or somewhere, for example, or people didn't know even English. So how do you communicate then? Because then we're talking about the recording. I use my little technical thing for body language, but that breaks down because then you have intonation from the voice, but then there's cultural things that can make that confusing. But I guess that maybe is good. But how do you communicate? How do you get 3 volunteers to do something like that and their verbal assent and you don't even know their basic language? It's all body language. It's all... You just wing it, don't you? You don't know.
When you get that close to anybody, I think the verbal language is not sufficient. You decide to sign a different nonverbal contract in anything when 2 people get that close. Just as friends, we're sitting here this close, and we've signed a contract to not take up this much space. Yeah. When we sat down by going like this.
Well,
otherwise, you'd be sitting.
Besides performing, you've traveled a lot. You mean when you meet people that don't know your language?
If you make a contact with a girl and you like each other and you touch each other's legs, so you move closer, you've made a contract not to just go. Rawr! And if you break it, you're going to get the no. But if you just touch back, maybe that's okay. And so all physical contacts are like that. Whether it's two guys shaking hands, it's not what I say that allows you to shake my hand. It's the fact that I put it forward. And so the language isn't as important when I'm going to ask you if I can be closer once I can get past conversation thing. I'd have to ask to sit down at this bench, because from